They're very close. So today we are very privileged to have you lead this conversation about the life of Thomas Sankara. I know you are a student of Thomas Sankara. You've studied him, you follow him, and so it wasn't difficult for us to find you as the appropriate person to lead this conversation. Now, the first thing we would like to discuss is the fact that Thomas Sankara became the president of Burkina Faso at the age of 34. He was only 34 years when he became president. Of course, he was assassinated at the age of 38. So he had very little time to do a lot, but within that short time, he did a lot. He was a driver of the Burkina Faso revolution, and he developed a lot of nuanced political actions to address the combined forces of neocolonialism, coloniality, patriarchy, ecological degradation, food justice, among others. This was a very uphill task for a young man to fight in a corrupt, decadent system. We'd like you to tell us who Thomas Sankara was and why his stepping into politics in Burkina Faso has relevance for us across Africa, across Latin America, and across the world.
Thank you again, Mo. This is a very important discussion for me personally, and it's a privilege to participate. Yeah, Thomas Sankara is one of the most remarkable political figures in contemporary history. Sankara had and continues to have a very profound impact in the development of the political consciousness of people in Africa and all over the world. When Thomas Sankara was the leader of the government in Burkina Faso, I was a teenager in high school. And that was a period of structural adjustment and under some of the worst forms of military dictatorship in Nigeria. A dictatorship that was characterized by massive looting of state funds by the soldiers and their cronies, massive environmental degradation by transnational corporations. That was also a period when imperialism and white supremacy had a bold face in Africa in the form of apartheid. At that time, Thomas Sankara emerged as a champion of the oppressed. He made us to know about even his country, Upper Volta, which was reasonably obscure until then. And the country became, during his time, Burkina Faso. He showed us the example of sacrifice in leadership and demonstrated how the resources of a country could be mobilized to address the needs of the people rather than satisfying the needs of imperialist interests. He showed us how it is necessary and how it is possible to stand up against imperialism. The example that Thomas Sankara established and his message is even more relevant today. In my view, Thomas Sankara is the most influential political leader that has emerged in Africa since the end of formal colonial rule over the countries of the continent. And in saying this, I recognize the historical significance of African leaders, both within the continent and the diaspora, that organized and developed the body of thought that led to African independence. We're talking about the anti-colonial leaders such as Nkrumah, Nyerere, Cabral, Sekou Touré, Lumumba. Those are leaders of the struggle for independence in Africa. However, following the formal independence from colonial rule, Western powers, including the United States, the European powers, continue to seek to dominate Africa, to keep Africa continually and perpetually impoverished. This was an era of new colonialism with the Western powers, when the Western powers tried and succeeded in propping up puppet regimes to do their bidding, which is to allow Western mining corporations and other financial interests to continue to plunder the resources of the continent. Those political leaders that sought to assert the independence of their countries were removed. Sometimes they were assassinated, people like Lumumba, but puppet soldiers with the direct instruction and the backing of Western powers, France in particular, and the US and others, were encouraged and allowed to remain. We find that whenever an African country has a pro-imperialist president like Felix Houphouët-Boigny of Ivory Coast, or Mobutu in Congo, former Zaire, those presidents remain in power for decades with the support of Western powers. We can count even today, in Cameroon, we have Paul Biya that has been there for decades, and several dictatorships in the Francophone Africa that is continually propped up by France, whether it's in Congo, the dynasty that is continuing to rule in Gabon, and so forth. However, whenever there is an anti-imperialist leader who seeks to restore power to the people and to use the resources of the land for the benefit of the people, they are overthrown or assassinated. Sometimes European powers, including the United States, and the United States, they sponsor civil wars to destabilize countries. Here, we are not merely talking about what happened in the past, what happened in history. We're talking about what is going on up till now. The result is that for most of Africa, the African predicament, the impoverishment of Africa, the development of Africa, the so-called conflicts and crises that have come to characterize Africa, is mostly the result of imperialist intervention in the continent. What we have is a situation where, following formal independence, there were massive development strides in several of the countries in Africa. But all of those development strides were lost, were swept away about 4, 5, 6 years after independence because of the emergence of corrupt military juntas and puppet regimes that do the bidding of Western powers. And this is the atmosphere, the situation that Thomas Sankara experienced as a young boy growing up in Upper Volta. He was born at a time when the Upper Volta, as Burkina Faso was named by France, was under French colonial rule. As a boy, he experienced independence and the political and social rot that followed in the country. Upper Volta was one of the most impoverished countries in the world. Sankara was compelled to join the military because the military was one of the few institutions that offered any opportunity to get an education. So even though he occupied a position of privilege himself, because he was a son of a policeman, a gendarme in colonial Upper Volta, and he became a military officer at a relatively early age. He saw the misery of the people of the country, and while studying, even as in the military academy, he encountered revolutionary ideas, and he became committed to the revolutionary cause. At the time when Upper Volta was going through a quick succession of military regimes, Sankara was appointed first as a Minister of Information against his wish. As a soldier, he had to take orders from the superiors, and one of the orders that was given to him was to serve as a Minister of Information under a military government. He resigned that position in the regime because he campaigned and he opposed the attempt of the regime that he served in to gag the people of Burkina Faso, to suppress unions. When that regime, that is the regime of Zabo, was overthrown by the successful regime of Ouedraogo, Sankara was appointed as prime minister because he was already quite popular in the country. And as Sankara continued to promote, even as prime minister in that government, revolutionary and anti-imperialist ideas. France pushed for him to be removed from office and arrested. The arrest of Thomas Sankara, a popular army officer, caused popular uprising in the country, and a revolt of young army officers led to the overthrow of the government, and Sankara was installed as a president. So Sankara was not himself a coup plotter. He emerged as a military leader following a popular insurrection. That was in 1983. He was president until 1987 when he was assassinated by his close friend and second in command, Blaise Compaoré. In 4 years that Sankara was leader of the government of Burkina Faso, he impacted Africa and the African imagination more than any other figure, definitely in my lifetime. He was a representation of the African revolutionary aspiration. He sought to empower the people of his country to rebuild the country on the terms of the people themselves and for the benefit of the people themselves, rather than for imperialism. He changed the colonial name of the country, the identity, the colonial identity of the country, Burkina Faso, and they gave the name from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso means the land of the people. This is the people defining for themselves how to call themselves. And that is an integral, important part of the decolonization process, because we have situations where countries like our own, Nigeria, the Niger area, is a name that has been given to us by imperialism, and we still maintain that name. It is important that as we move towards decolonization, that we even think about renaming ourselves on the terms of our people, to identify ourselves the way we want to be identified, the way Ghana has done and the way other countries have done, like Benin. And so Sankara, without the Burkina Faso was a poor country in terms of dollar. There was no foreign dollar coming in, and he was able, as the leader of the country, to mobilize the population to be self-reliant, working together in solidarity to almost double food production through land reform, by elimination of feudal practices, by that had landlords collecting rent from peasant farmers, by promoting popular cooperatives, irrigation schemes without foreign loans, and so-called foreign aid. The government embarked on massive drive to increase the number of schools, and there was massive improvement in the number of enrollment of children in schools. In the area of healthcare, we had a situation where in a period of 2 weeks, about 2.5 million people were vaccinated against diseases like measles, yellow fever, meningitis, and this attracted the praise of even the World Health Organization, because Sankara and the people of Burkina Faso were able to achieve these strides without international help, even without the help of international development organizations and NGOs. Socially, under the leadership of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso worked to dismantle patriarchy and to promote the rights of women who were given important appointments in government. Women were encouraged to go to school and to remain in school even when they are pregnant. Female genital mutilation was outlawed. Women in Burkina Faso felt treated at that time by the government as equal to men. But even more significantly, women were encouraged to participate in the revolutionary process, in the process of social transformation in Burkina Faso. But beyond Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara had the profound impact in the continent of Africa. He became the preeminent spokesperson on behalf of exploited people in the continent and even elsewhere. He tried to rally the continent and the leaders of the continent against imperialism and all those that serve imperialist interests. The importance of Thomas Sankara and his relevance is not merely historical, and I'll say that again and again, because we do not study the life and achievements of Thomas Sankara merely to learn from the past. More fundamentally, in my view, is that Sankara, concerning his ideas and actions and the policies that he implemented during the short period that he was head of government in Burkina Faso, represents a kind of a testament. A testament is the evidence of what Africa hopes for. It is the evidence, the assurance of what will be We saw in the brief period that Thomas Sankara was the leader of Burkina Faso, the assurance, the evidence, the manifestation of what is possible. You know, that he showed that we can do this ourselves, we can change ourselves, we can rebuild our countries ourselves, and that this has to be done as a collective struggle, and that this is a struggle that we will win, because he showed with the concrete impact in this country that this is achievable.
Now you've covered a lot of grounds and you've given us a lot to chew on.